Today's seminar was a toss-up. And a toss-up was between... We're going to talk about things and run through certain situations and scenario. Or learn how to play chess. And I opted, it'll be more valuable for you lot to learn how to fucking play chess than it is to know how to pipe that 4 out of 10 that you lot are chatting to. So, here we are. Now, by no means am I a grandmaster at chess and shit. But, I can at least help you lot with the basics. I'm gonna help you lot with the basics to understand how to play chess, and then you lot go and like practice your own shit, yeah? Alright. So the base of chess is very simple. Over here, you have a king. Over here, you have a king. It's simple. All you're trying to do is to capture your opponent's king. Now, I'm going to go through the rest of the pieces. And after I go through the rest of the pieces, I'm going to let you guys know exactly how the pieces move. So here, you have a pawn. Over here, you have your knights. Over here, you have your bishops. Over here, you have your rooks. Over here, you have your queen. And over here, obviously, you have the king. Now, all the pieces move in different directions and different amount of spaces. So your pawns, those are just your associates. For the first move, can either move 1 space or can move 2 spaces. However, to capture an opponent, the pawn works a bit different than the rest of the other pieces. Because to capture your opponent, you can only capture an opponent that is 1 square diagonal to your pawn. So you can only capture an opponent that's diagonal. Moving wise, your first move for the pawn can move 2 boxes or only 1 box, 1 square, shall I say. And then for the rest of the game, your pawn can only move square by square. And then to capture, diagonal, right? And also, your pawn is the only piece that can be upgraded. So your pawn can move all the way up to the end square. And once it reaches the end square, you can then upgrade your pawn piece. Let's say, for example, you manage to take your pawn all the way here. You capture this one. You capture this one. You can now upgrade your pawn to any other piece. That's the basics of a pawn, yeah? Next in line, we have the knights. Your knights, they're your brethrens. The knights move in an L shape. That is 3 squares one direction and 1 square in the other direction. And also, your knight can jump over pieces. It's the only piece that can jump over a piece, right? In an L shape, it can only move. So your knights can move like this, or it can move like this, or it can move like this, or it can move like this. In an L square, 1 direction and 3 for the other direction. So here is 1 and then 1, 2, 3, right? So 1, 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3, 1. So your knights move in an L direction. Next up, over here, we have your bishops. Now, the way your bishops move... Next up, we have your bishops. Your bishops are your cousins. Your bishops can move diagonal any amount of boxes. So it can move here. It can move back here. It can move here. It can move back here. It can only move diagonal and in any amount of boxes or squares. Okay, now I fuck keep saying boxes, bro. Am I thinking about a trap? Any amount of squares, yeah? Next up, we have your rooks. Your rooks are your brothers. Your rooks can only move vertically and horizontally. Any amount of squares. It can move vertically and horizontal, right? Any amount of squares. Next up, we have your queen, the most powerful piece. This is your gal. This is your main thing. This is your missus, your wife. Now the queen, the reason why the queen is the most powerful piece is because it can move any direction and any amount of squares. It can move vertically, horizontally, diagonally. So essentially, your queen is a mixture of your brothers and your cousins, right? So remember, your brothers, which are your rook, can move vertically or horizontally, any amount of squares. Your bishops can move diagonally, any amount of squares. Your queen can do both, diagonally, any amount of squares in any direction, or horizontally, any amount of squares, any direction, and vertically, any amount of squares, any direction, right? Boom! Then finally, you have the most important piece that you must protect at all costs, the king. The king can move just like the queen, but only one square per move. So your king can move right, up, let's move this out of the way, left, down. So your king can move in any direction, but only at one square per move. So now you understand how all pieces move. You have to understand the aim of the game. The aim of the game is to capture the other person's king. How do you capture it? Well, you have all your army here. You have your rooks, which is your brothers. You have your knights, which is your boys. You have your cousins, which is your bishops. You have your queen, which is your missus. And then you have your pawns. Those are just your associates, yeah? Protect your king at all costs. Checkmate means your king is in danger. That's what we call a checkmate. So for example, if they were to move this here and I were to move my king out the way, then let's say they move and I move my bishop here, their king is now in checkmate, because remember, I can move diagonally any amount of squares. Checkmate means your king is in danger. So they would probably move their king out the way, or they may even defend, bring their bishop out to defend their king, right? Now, if I were to, I wouldn't make this move personally, because remember, they have a queen here that can move in any direction. But let's say hypothetically, if I was to make this move again here, their king again is in checkmate. Why? Because the bishop can move diagonally. The more you guys play this, the more you understand. But just for a basis, don't overcomplicate it. Just understand how the pieces move. Go on chess.com and get a feel of the game. But you guys now know how each piece moves, yeah? So remember, just as a quick recap, your pawns, only one square at a time. Obviously, for the first time you move it, you can move it 2 squares or 1 square. And to capture a piece, it moves diagonally. And when you get all the way to the end, you are able to upgrade your piece to any of these pieces. Just upgrade it to a fucking queen, bro. Let's not complicate it, because the queen is the most powerful piece, right? Remember how your knights move? Your knights are the only piece that can jump over any piece. So it moves in an L shape. L shape, yeah? You've got your bishops, can move diagonally. Any amount of squares. Rooks can move vertically and horizontally, any amount of squares. And then you've got your queen. Remember, the most powerful piece that can move any amount of squares in any direction, yeah? And then finally, you have got your king that can only move 1 square at a time in any direction, yeah? And those are all your pieces. Protect your king at all costs, just like in life. Protect yourself at all costs. And if somebody has to go, they gotta go.